Strings in today's video are provided by Diodario, the most consistent strings on planet Earth.
I can't get it to tune up right.
1931?
Yeah.
Yeah. Gibson?
Yeah. Is it a L-O? It's a 12 fretter. I can't remember what it is. Brad's a good tuner. He tunes them all good.
Yeah, he does.
He's got such good ears, man. Look how he does that. That's impressive. I can't do that for shit.
It's all the fingernails.
I'm going to hire Brad just to tune all my guitars for me. He really does tune a guitar better than anybody I've ever seen. I can't make it play in tune. I don't know why. That's the Robert Johnson guitar, 12 fretter.
Still not two. Hey, how's it going, dudes and dudettes? Brad the Guitarologist here. This is a 1930 or 31, as near as we can tell, Gibson L-1. This is the Robert Johnson model Gibson. I don't know offhand what year Robert Johnson's Gibson was supposed to have been, but it had to have been somewhere near to this date. There are some specs that actually delineate the different Gibsons. This one has the Gibson on the headstock. It's white paint. It actually looks like inlay. I had to do a double take, but it's actually white paint. This one was owned by someone named Schwender. I guess that's R. Is that R-E or R-F, Schwender? This belongs to my friend Steve, and he actually had a mandolin that was the sister of instrument to this that had a similar truss rod cover. So this was the husband's guitar, and his wife actually owned and played the mandolin, apparently. So this is the mandolin that goes with the guitar, and serial number is 86971.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a style, what is this? Style A, obviously.
Yeah, it's A style, yeah.
Yeah. And then Helen Schwender is the name of the mandolinist.
And her husband played the L1.
So her husband played the L1 guitar, and she played this presumably.
The L1,
yeah.
I think that's a 29, and this is a 31 L1.
Very cool.
A 1929 Martin mandolin too, with a letter from the factory authenticating it.
Yeah, that's cool right there. I like these old Gibsons because they're not crazy expensive.
The blacks weren't as popular either as the Sunbursts.
Right. Yeah, they're not crazy expensive at all, and they do sound good. They sound great in a recording.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're not as thrusting as a...
It's like an F.
Yeah, exactly.
But back to the specs. This one obviously is a sunburst. It has a rectangular bridge with the low ends on it. And this is obviously a rosewood rectangular bridge, Brazilian rosewood. Some of the other ones earlier than this, I believe, had raised sections on the ends that were kind of little pyramid sections on the ends of the bridge. That's not present here. They were messing around a lot with the specs on these, so there's really not a very good consistent way to date these, except just look at the totality of everything and just kind of get as near as you can. This one would have had the raised pick guard. You can see a little hole right here and another hole here on the side where it would have attached. That was a different style of pick guard than the ones that were glued on to the top. They did make some that had the glued on as well. This one is 12 frets clear of the body. We've got top and back binding. The back and sides are actually mahogany. If you look inside there, you'll see that's clearly mahogany. And we do have, it's really hard to see unless you get in the right light, but I am almost certain, yeah, this is definitely a spruce top. And it's also X-braced. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. Yeah, you can see the bracing. So X-braced on the top. Very, looks like very scalloped and very well made braces as well. We'll try to get some views inside this guitar a little later if we can. I'll put my phone in there and see what we can see. Great looking guitar, man. This thing is in excellent shape. Really good shape. Besides the missing pick guard, it does have the Gib case, the original Gib case. We've got 3 to a plate tuners here, which is consistent with the 1930 or 31 kind of model year. The back is in really great shape. I don't detect any kind of refinishing on this thing at all that I can tell. I mean, usually refinishing or oversprays will kind of pop out at you, but this one doesn't appear to have any of that. The finish checking that we do have seems to be like to the surface, so it's not buried under a bunch of refinish or anything like that. Killer guitar. It's a really nice old flat top Gibson from the early 30s, one of their earliest flat tops. This one has the 14 3/4 lower bout. I think some of these were like 13.5 or something like that, so they were smaller before this. They had periods where they were smaller and not smaller, depending on the model. Again, it's kind of confusing. I will put links down in the description to where you can, if you have one of these and you're trying to date it or you're trying to get more information about it. Another thing they changed a lot was the inlays. So this one has dots on the 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, 12th, and 15th frets. Some of these I think only went like maybe these 3 and then the 12 and 15, leaving this one off. I can't remember for sure, but some of them are a bit different on the inlays. This one does have a Brazilian rosewood fretboard that is attached here on the body. Some were raised on the body. So, they did have some different specs. And also they had some different configurations of the rosette here, the circle around the rosette. This one just happens to be white, black, and white in its little stack. Some were black, white, black, white. Okay, the reason I have this at my house here, the problem is that it will not intonate. I don't know what all work has been done on this in recent years. It looks like maybe the bridge has been re-glued at some point. Just looking at the edge of the bridge here, it looks like maybe someone re-glued the bridge, and that may have been what another tech has done recently on this thing. I don't think that really has much to do with the reason why it won't intonate, because it looks like it went back in the same footprint where it came out of, so it might have been this way from the factory. I don't know. But I can tell you that all of these strings are on the front edge. They're coming right off the front edge of this bridge, and usually to intonate one, to get it really, really dialed in, you're going to see some waviness where a luthier has kind of shaved the bridge so that each of these strings kind of sets at its own point somewhere between the back edge and the front edge, depending on where it needs to be. That's what we're going to do with this guitar today. We're going to try to dial in this intonation where this thing can actually be playable. As it is, it's really not that playable. I'll show you what I mean. It really seems like no matter how you tune this thing up, whether you do it by ear, whether you do it with a tuner, whatever, it's just will not stay in tune all the way up and down the neck. So you can get to a point where maybe your G is in, for instance, but then you add this double stop up here on top, and then it's way out. It seems like maybe the E and the B are the most out, We're gonna bust out probably the strobe tuner to do this, and we'll see how far out we are, how far we have to move this, but we're gonna have to pull that bridge right there and do some work on this bridge. So let's get to it. We've got our strobe tuner hooked up, ready to go. We've got a little microphone that I'm using here. It's a little homemade job with a piezo element on top that I've made. It's kind of a little effects microphone. You can actually sing into it as well. Okay, so on these CONN STROBOTUNERs, the way to start off on one of these, you put it in calibration mode, and the disc spins at a preset rate, and then you can actually you can calibrate right here. What you want to do is you want to get that main dot right there to basically stand still, which it is. If I were to move the calibration, you'll see that it will start moving forward or backwards. So to calibrate this, we want this to stand just perfectly still if we can get it. It's moving backwards, so it's somewhere right in there. Right about there, it's calibrated. Now we can go on to normal function, and it sounds like my strobe needs to be lubricated, probably. Yeah, something's going on there with that. But anyway, this should be good enough that we can at least check the intonation on this. So let's go to E. So we'll go to our E note here, and okay, let's tune that in. Helps when you tune the right string. And again, we just want to get those little black bars to stop. Right? It's pretty close right there. That's within the margin of error of someone's vibrato, or geez, just holding the guitar up is going to put it in a different position. Just moving around with it will I mean, this is not gonna ever be an exact science, but if you want to get as close as possible, the strobe is usually the way to go. So what we want to do is see where it is, and right now we're open string. We're pretty good, right? Now let's check it with a harmonic. Harmonic is pretty good too, if not even. Maybe even a touch flat. But when we fret the note, let's see where it goes. It's a little bit sharp. It's not real sharp, but it is a little bit sharp. So definitely sharp from where it is on that. Now let's check our B. And actually, I think, let's see, how do I want to approach this? We're going to change these strings anyway, so I'm not worried about really taking the strings off, putting them back on, because these are silken steels, and they're brand new strings. These silken steels, they're relatively new, and they're very dull because they're silken steels on these bottom strings. The bottom four strings, in fact, are wound. They're wound third as well, and they have a silk core, which is very dull sounding. It's okay when you're picking really intimate, you've got close mics and everything, but if you want something to have that steel string sort of singing effect, you know, all the high end of a steel string guitar, we're going to replace these with steel strings. We're going to go really light gauge, probably something like a 10. So they'll be light strings, extra light for acoustic, because obviously we don't want to risk messing this guitar up or anything, or, you know, bulging the belly or anything like that. But it can sound much, much better than it is currently with these silken steels on here. And it is braced for it. It is a X-braced steel string guitar, and even though it's from the 30s, it should be able to handle a 10 gauge set of steel strings, no problem. So there's no issue with that. But since we're going to change them anyway, what we're going to do, we are going to intonate this one string at a time. And the way we're going to do that, we're going to do it actually without even removing that saddle at least initially here. This will allow me to go in and actually intonate each string separately. So keep in mind where we are right now. So here's our open E, you know, there's our harmonic. So we are definitely sharp, you see there. And that's a situation you don't want. You don't ever want it to be sharp. If anything, you want it to be slightly flat if you can get it slightly flat. I would rather go slightly flat than slightly sharp on intonation if given a choice, just simply because you can always press down a little bit harder on a string as a player to get that, bring that intonation in, but you can't really go down on the pitch. So yeah, I always err on the side of, if I'm gonna err at all, I wanna go slightly flat rather than slightly sharp. When this one's slightly sharp, that's unacceptable. So the first thing we gotta do, we gotta take this E string, we're gonna loosen this, and we'll get it up out of the channel that it's currently sitting in. So I'm just gonna take a couple of blank pieces of this little paper right here, and we'll just kinda affix it here. So if we do have any little minor slips, it'll hit that paper rather than hitting the top. You know, I don't want to put too much adhesive on this old finish because I don't know how well it's going to hold up with me ripping it off. Sometimes, even though this painter's tape and it's relatively not all that tacky, it can pull old finishes off sometimes. So you just want to be careful with that. I'm going to move our E string out of the way, and we're going to actually file that. Okay, so we'll get our raspiest file here to start out with. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to angle this all the way backwards right here on this. And we're going to smooth this out better later, and we're going to blend all this in better. But for now, we just want to get each string set where it needs to be. We're not filing this straight across, we're filing it at an angle, so that what we're doing is we're pushing the crest of the leading edge of the saddle backwards. So we're pushing it toward the end of the guitar rather than toward the neck. That's going to affect the intonation. I'm going to put a second piece of tape along the front edge of that bridge to make sure we don't get into it. Just like right there. Okay, so we've done a little bit of filing there. Let's see how much closer we are, if any. Okay, so there we're in tune. There we're in tune. Still going forward some, which I suspected that would be the case. Yep. Still got a ways to go. We may not be able to get this entirely intonated. This might not be possible with the placement of the bridge, the current placement. We're going to do our best though. What you can also do is you can cheat with the height of the string somewhat, because you've watched my videos before on intonation. You'll know that the further you have to push the string down, the higher up the neck you get, the further the string has to travel before it hits that fret. It's basically like you're bending the string, because think of it like if the string is at rest and nothing is touching it, that's its natural state, and that's the way it's sounding when it's open and when you're doing harmonics. But when you start to depress the string down to the fret, that's when you start really bending the string. So you have to account for that as well if you want the intonation to be as close to perfect as you can get it. That has to be accounted for. And if you don't account for that, then you might get through an intonation procedure and then think, well, where did I screw up? This still isn't right. and you'll just be chasing your tail, not realizing that every time you press down on the string, you're bending it. And if the strings are too high, you're sharpening the string every time you press down on a note. So like I said, we got a ways to go here. Okay, so we have the E string pretty much intonated at this point. You can see how it is all the way back to the rear edge. So it's taken off from way back here instead of taking off from the front. And that makes a big difference when you're talking about intonation, the difference from here to here. So if we look at it now, here's the open string, the open E. Okay, now here's the fretted note. You remember how swiftly it was moving sharp before? Well, still moving sharp. But that is going to be, a lot of that is going to be in our action. You see the distance that we're having to push the string to get it from here to here. Now you want some of that, but we're just going to take off a little bit of this height. That's going to get our intonation pretty much perfect. Right now, I haven't taken any height whatsoever off. All I did was shave this back to the point where we could still see the little divot for the string. We're going to take that down ever so slightly, and I think by lowering this ever so slightly, we're going to be able to get that intonation pretty much perfect. Now this is probably going to make some people squeamish, and they're going to think, oh, you're doing that over, oh. You're going to raise a stink about it, you're going to clutch your pearls, and you're going to, oh no! But guess what? It's okay. Calm down. Plus, doing it like that gives me that really nice, pleasant, burnt hair smell of grinding and sanding on bone. Anybody who's done that before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Oh, buddy, it doesn't get any more perfect than that. Here's our open E string. See, it's pretty much dead on. If anything, it might be slightly sharp, but dead on, as it can really get. So we'll try. See that right there? You see how if anything it might be ever so slightly flat. But see, that's in the realm of your vibrato. If you're hitting a note, look, watch. See that? When you're playing with passion and you're playing notes, you're usually gonna have some kind of vibrato going on. And it's right there in the realm of the vibrato. See that? Ever so slightly flat. That's the way you want it. Ever so slightly flat, if anything. So that's how much we had to take off. We did lower the string ever so slightly, not by very much. But what that did was it decreased the distance we had to press the string to get it down to hit the fret. From here to here, therefore, the string is not bending as far. So you know how bend works. When you press it down, you bend the string this way. Well, that's what you're doing. You're increasing the tension on the string, and that's exactly what you do when you depress the string. So at rest, the string has one tension, but when you have to depress it down even this far, you have raised the tension ever so slightly. It's not by much, but it is there. If you want things to be as perfect as humanly possible, intonation-wise, on an acoustic like that or any other guitar, you have to kind of play with those and split the difference sometimes and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we've done here. So the E string is good to go. Now we're going to take our little files and we're going to do all the rest of these strings all the way down to the low E. Okay, so now on to the B string. I'm just going to make a guess that we're probably going to have to go all the way back with this B string as well. All right, let's check that right there. Okay, so there's our open B, which is good. There's our harmonic, which is good. Now this next level up, see how we're pretty sharp. Really sharp, in fact. Even though we've gotten this all the way back to the rear edge, it's back as far as it will go. So now we've got to try to make up the difference by bringing the action down slightly so that we're not bending as far to get down to the fret. And that might be the best that we're going to end up doing with this, is getting it all the way back to the rear edge and then lowering it down. Back to the drawing board. Let's try it again. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, there's our B string in. Okay. Still sharp, but not as badly sharp as it was. It's not moving forward as swiftly as it was before. But we still do have a ways to go, so we're gonna file this down even more. So you see what the process is here. It's laborious, but it's worth it. Still ever so slightly sharp. See there, it's still sharp, so we need to take down some more. Now the owner, Steve, did not want to take too much height off of this, so we're gonna try to avoid taking off as much as we can, but it does need to come down to get this thing intonated. It's just the way it is, it's physics. Without removing the bridge and moving the whole bridge back that way, maybe a millimeter or two, you're gonna have to make sacrifices. And I really don't want to take the bridge off just to move it back a millimeter. I don't think he would want that either. That is real damn close, but it is still slightly sharp. And like I said before, if we're going to err at all, I would rather err toward being slightly flat than slightly sharp. So look at that. I mean, we're right there on it, so I'm gonna call that a win right there. So on to the next string. Let's see where we are on this G, because I don't think we're as far off on this G. Yeah, see, this one's not as far off. But it still is off, and it's a wound string, so we're gonna have to, again, go backwards with this. Okay, let's see where that's gotten us. Now we're dead on right there with the intonation, but string height wise, we're gonna have to compensate because there's a big difference between the current string height of this G and the string height of the B, because we had to bring the B way down, so we don't want that really. So what we want to do here, we want to actually angle it forward some and take a little bit of the height off, and we want to push the string a little further this way at the same time that we're filing downward to try to keep the balance the same. Actually, I got to take the string off to do it too. Okay, let's see where that got us. Check this out. These are the original bone pegs. They're not plastic. That's pretty much spot on right there, and the string height is really comparable. Another thing we're going to do, we're going to ramp this bridge also. That's going to give us the maximum amount of break angle over the saddle. It's a very slight alteration to the bridge. It's nothing major, and it's going to increase the sustain of the guitar and give it the most sound out of it. Let's keep going. I'll tell you what, I'm going to not make you sit through the rest of these, but you get the idea, and we'll come back at the end and we'll do a demo of all of this, and I'll also show you the ramping procedure. Okay, at this point we have all 6 strings properly intonated, and they are spot freaking on. I was able to intonate all of these, and they're beautiful. I did not have to lower the action very much. He wanted the action to stay high, which I totally understand. You don't want to, but I did have to bring it down some to get these upper strings, a couple of these, like the B string, for instance, to intonate properly, because there just wasn't enough room. And some of these other ones too, I ended up having to lower the strings because I had to lower the B so much to get it in perfect intonation that the rest were just way too high by comparison. So I did bring those down. I eased them down ever so slightly, where now it's looking like we're set. The only other thing I really want to do here is I want to ramp the strings, and I'll show you what I mean by that. And you see this little slot that where the string is diving down into there? There's a little slot right in front of the peg. You see how that slot is there, and there's a little bit of a slot on each one of these. Well, off of the E string, you see how it goes over the saddle and then directly down into this slot. So this one's actually fine. This one's probably okay as well. You can see it goes over the saddle and then pretty much straight down. But the rest of these, the further out you get, the more they're having to go back before they go down. To get the most tone out of an acoustic guitar, you really want all these to be pretty consistent, and you want them all to kind of come up, preferably right up to the saddle right there. You want all of them to come up to the saddle and then break down sharply into the bridge. So what we're going to do, we're going to come in here and ramp these, and I'll show you what we do with that. Okay, now I could do this with small hand files, but I, again, prefer to use a rotary tool. And what we're going to use, we're just going to use a small rotary tool like this. So it's kind of like a little router / rasp. We have to take some strings off. Tell you what, it is so lovely to see an original set of pegs like that. These, you notice they don't have the slots in them at all. That's all original set of pegs. Bone. You can hear it tinkle. You hear when they hit each other, they're tinkling. You can tell, that's how you can tell that's bone. This was the original bridge that I was filing upon, and while I hate to, you know, necessarily mess with original stuff, in this case this had to happen. There was no, you could not play this guitar otherwise. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. Okay, you can see how much longer that is now. If you use a tool that is too long, you'll end up getting into the saddle, which you don't want to do. You might want to remove the saddle if you're afraid of doing that. So just be mindful that the saddle is there. You don't want to, you know, route into the saddle. Okay, now you can hopefully see that the ramps for those have extended way out toward the saddle, and each one of these is a little bit longer now. So that means that when the string comes over the saddle, it's not going to have as far back to go before it can start breaking downward. That's going to give us the most energy transfer into this top that can possibly be made. So now that all of that is done, I'm going to do a little bit of cleaning up on this to just get it consistent all the way across, and then we'll be ready to give this thing a test. Peeling this paper up off of here, you could see why you have to be very, very careful, because even though I was very, very careful, and this is just basically a post-it note strength tape, you could see that it does bring up a little bit of a few little pieces of finished chunk and maybe a couple little pieces of wood in there. And that's because the finish in this area where that was is not entirely intact. I didn't do this, but you could see that it did take up some of the finish there. That's why you got to just be very careful about the type of adhesives you use. Like I said, this is just a post-it note, so I mean it doesn't get much weaker than that, but it still did that amount to the finish. Now on a guitar like this, you know, it's not that huge of a deal because it's you know, it's vintage and it's not going to be perfect regardless. But you just have to be mindful, because you definitely don't want like big strips of finish and stuff coming off. You just got to be very careful about that. Okay, strings we're going to put on this are some D'Addario. These are the 80/20 bronze EXP10. These are the coated extra lights. These are 10 to 47. And we don't want to go really much heavier than this. I think 11 might be the absolute limit, but 10 is the limit of what I'm willing to go. While we're at it, I want to look inside the thing and see what the bracing and everything looks like. Okay, so here's the inside of it. As you can see, there's our X right up here. Even that muslin is still intact. And this thing is in really exceptional condition for like a 1930 or 31 Gibson. This thing is, and one that was played by the owner. This was apparently, you know, this was played. This wasn't left in a case. It was played at least to some extent, because they had sort of a husband and wife duo going on. I don't see any repairs, man. There's no cracks or anything. No cracked braces. This thing is beautiful. Let's go around the other way. See what we could see over here. Might be a bit tough, but I don't see any issues with the bracing. You can see there clearly the numbers. I don't know what that little 82 means, but it might be part of the shipping number, batch number, whatever. That I think that factory order number is the 9897. That's a 4-digit factory order number, and it's a high one, high 9000s, which puts it probably 1931. Got a little bit of glue squeeze out up in there. I don't know if that's factory or not. I don't know. This might have had some repaired binding or something at some point. It looks like that's kind of all the way around there. The bridge plate looks like it's in pretty good condition. I mean, it's not cracked, and it's got some chip outs, which you expect, but not a lot. You can see the quality of the spruce is pretty darn good. Nothing alarming in here to report at all. Okay, we've got her all dialed in now. I busted out the nut files and did a little bit of filing on the nut, tightened the truss rod slightly, and got the neck all nice and straight. And I don't know if you guys remember how bad this was, but Pepperidge Farm sure remembers, and it was pretty bad. So check this out now. This thing sounds so sweet and so beautiful. This right here, guys, is what vintage guitars is supposed to be all about. This is an amazing sounding little acoustic. This thing is silly good. And a 1, 2, 3, 4.